What's up, guys, and welcome back to Interact's Grow podcast. I'm your host, Jessmyn Solana. So great to be with you as always. We have the whole crew here today: Damaris, Jesy, Jackie, and Josh. Guys, thank you for joining me. And we're trying something a little bit different. We usually have a little bit of an outline for questions, but I kind of wanted to try this sort of style out of coming up with one topic and then we just go for it. So we'll see how it goes. If this episode ends up being terrible, then everyone tell us and we'll never do it again. But all right, so this question for today, I feel like has come up since the beginning of time, and it's one of our most asked questions when somebody publishes a quiz, right? Because it's a subscription-based service that we have, and they want to know how much or how long does it really take to see results with my quiz? So we're assuming our quiz is created, it's up and running, I've figured out all of my promotions, how I want to promote it. How long is it going to take me?
I have a hot take.
Yeah, tell us your hot take, Josh.
Okay, here's my hot take. Because I just got an email right before we jumped on to record. And it's an email that is a story that I've heard not a million times, but like 10,000 times since we started this company. And the email was like, hey, we ran ads, we got really low cost per lead, but the lead quality wasn't high enough. And to me, I think there's two very distinct ways to use a quiz. One is as onboarding to your business, and the other is as a going out and trying to attract people into your business. So the first one is like, people are already engaging with you on socials. They already kind of know you a little bit. Then they click through to your link in bio and they see the quiz, or they go to your website and they see the quiz, and then they take it. And then the opt-in there is basically like, hey, opt in to continue building this connection with my brand. And that, I think you see results very quickly and for a very long time. Like, those are our clients that are with us for like 8-10 years now. The one where it's like, I'm going to make a quiz and I'm expecting this to go and bring me leads at a lower cost, and those leads are going to convert, and I'm going to sell more products, and my brand is really new, always fails. And that was what the email was about. And so that's my impression, is like, if you're using it as a way to onboard users, and what I mean by that is like, they already know you to some level, and this is just moving them from like, they know you on some level to now they're on your email list to get you to know you more. I think you'll see the results right away because it'll replace whatever else you were doing, and you'll see the results over time. If you are expecting it to like incrementally bump your business up by running ads to it, and it's just going to like magically bring in people from the ethos, I think it's not going to work, and you won't see any results most of the time. And if you do see results, it's usually not going to live up to your expectations. That's my hot take.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was going to say it will take you forever to see quiz results if you're not clear on what results you're trying to get, which aligns with what Josh was saying, right? Like, what is the goal of your quiz? What are you looking for? Because at least from coaching, and I think we saw this a lot in the community as well, people would read case studies about quizzes converting like hundreds of thousands of subscribers to their list or growing email lists by 400%, right? And so I guess that was their expectation of the results they would get the first time they published their quiz, like maybe adding it to a link in bio or posting it on social one time. But that, for the people who aren't getting all of these leads back right away, because it does happen, there's case studies on it for sure, but that's like the people Josh was saying that have an established way to bring people into their business, right? You shouldn't expect that. You probably also, if you're not in that place, wouldn't be able to manage hundreds of thousands of leads and be able to sell things to them in the right way. And that probably will just leave a bad taste in your followers' mouth, or people that do find it in their mouth, in their minds. of
Talking about wine now.
Yeah. Oh God. But just because you're not able to take care of or support customers in the way that you were hoping to, because you probably could only manage 10 people when you get way more than that. So I would say get really clear on what your results are. And if it's just getting 5 to 10 new leads to see what happens after they subscribe, that's okay. And I think when you're clear on that, you should be able to see results within a couple of days, given that you're actively promoting the quiz, you're not just putting it out somewhere one time when your website isn't already getting views, right? You're not going to get new views just because you added a quiz to it. So as long as you're promoting it, you can typically see how the quiz converts or will convert as you continue to optimize it within a couple of days.
Yeah, I think that I'm reading this book right now. It's called Sticking With It. It's like a UCLA professor guy. And his whole thing is like, if you're going to set a goal, then you need the steps to work towards that goal to be attainable. So if your goal is to like have $1 million a year business, but right now you make zero and you're expecting that one step, i.e. your quiz, is going to get you like 30% of the way there, then you're going to fail and you're going to lose momentum. What you want to do is break it down into really, really tiny steps. Like maybe you want your quiz to bring you 3 leads in the first month, and you're going to work really hard to promote it and bring 3 leads in. Then that gives you like positive feedback, and it, you know, incentivizes you to promote it more or do more content to lead people to the quiz. So I think, to, you know, kind of parlay off what you were saying, having that goal in mind is great, but you then need to focus on what's attainable right now. And I think that's where people get really tripped up, because they, like you said, they read a case study of someone else who built $1 million a year business, and they're like, oh, the quiz should get me 40% of the way there for sure, right?
Tomorrow.
So then tomorrow. And then when it doesn't, now you feel bad, and it actually deters you from forming a habit of building your company. Like if you set unrealistic expectations for yourself, you will make yourself fail.
Did you have something to say, Jessy? You open your mouth real quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just like listening to you guys, like talking it through, it kind of sounds like following like a fitness goal. Like, you know, you want to lose 10 pounds by the end of the month. And realistically, that's a lot of weight to lose. But what if you say you're going to lose 1.5 pounds each week, you know, or something like that? And people are like, well, how am I going to do it? Is it possible? And it's like, we give you the outlines. Like, here's what you do. You already have your quiz. Here's how you got to promote it. Like, here's your meal plan. Here's how you got to meal prep. Here's the exercises you need to do. If you do those things, you will most likely lose those pounds by the end of the month. It won't be the whole 10 pounds, but a little by little each week. And the better you get at those, you know, the more you can work out, the, you know, stricter you can go with your meal plan and everything like that. It sounds like a perfect little formula. And if you follow it, but people just definitely want the instant results at the end, which doesn't always happen, unfortunately.
I'm really glad.
To just like, I was sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
I was just going to say, to continue that analogy, right? It's like, if you try to work out way too much on the first day, you're going to get sore, you're going to hurt yourself, and then you're just going to stop for like months or years after that. And I think it's the same thing, right? Like people launch a quiz, they put a ton of time into it, they overexert themselves, then it doesn't live up to their lofty expectations, and then they quit. Oftentimes they quit their entire business. Like we saw a lot of that the last few years, especially during the pandemic. Like people came in really hot. They had all these lofty expectations for themselves. And then when it didn't live up to those expectations on the first try or the second try, just gave up. And it's like, if you actually want to reach your goal, just lower your expectations.
So what I was going to add to that, because I like that you guys brought up setting the right expectations. And then Jessy, I wanted to call out that you specifically said the word formula, because what was coming to mind as you guys were speaking was, you know, when you are assessing, you know, any type of software for your business, how do you calculate what the ROI could be in a realistic sense to make sure, like, okay, what I'm paying for makes sense to what I want to get in return or what I expect to get in return?
And like not investing ahead of your business. Like I had a conversation with someone yesterday on Instagram where she was like, yeah, you know, it doesn't make sense for me to talk about quizzes with my audience because my audience is people that are just getting started. And I was like, totally valid point. Perfect. Like, don't invest ahead of where you are. Like in the beginning, you might just need an Instagram account and a link in bio tool. Like, and you might be good with that for like 6 months or a year or longer. And then, you know, you incrementally add. And I think what people do a lot is and we hear this, I'm sure you all have heard this, like people come to us and they're like, oh, I can't afford $40 a month or $29 a month or whatever. I've already spent $10,000 on software. And I'm like, why? You haven't even launched your business. Like, don't start spending until people are actually coming in the door. And I think don't spend until you absolutely need to. Like, don't spend ahead of your business, because otherwise you're going to invest in a bunch of stuff you're not going to use. And then when you get to the point where you actually could use a quiz or something like that, you've already spent all your money and, you know, you're underwater. So I think that's almost goes back to like good financial principles.
And it's also kind of interesting when people are in a position, I feel, to, you know, maybe invest in Interact or like a tool like this, and they decide, you know, they can't. And I'm like, this is the tool that is going to help grow your business and get you more customers. Like, you know, it's really important to assess what tools, like, I know Zapier helps with everything, but like, you know, if that's, you feel that you have to sign up in order to like integrate something with it, like I'm sure there's a way around it. I'm sure you can download a CSV manually, you know, and like save costs on that. But I do see a lot of people come in and they have so many subscriptions to different softwares and just seem like overwhelmed by it, which simplifying it down, I feel like is so important in the beginning.
A word that comes to mind as you guys are speaking is like making sure that your business stays sustainable. You know, as you're thinking about what softwares to use, whether it's a quiz or email marketing platform or automation and so on. And from what I'm getting from you, Jesy, is sort of this idea of like, you know, if you're interested in using a quiz, and let's say, right, like your first expectation is, okay, I just need three leads a month. Right. But then, you know, that's not going to make me, that might not help me pay it back at this time, let's say, you know, just hypothetically. But you can do something like, okay, well, I'm not ready to send emails to 3 people a month. So I can, you know, maybe get like a different option or like a free option for an email marketing platform, whether it integrates or not, or I can send personal emails and just download those leads from a CSV file. And go from there and like figure out these different workarounds in order to, you know, help your business evolve without breaking the bank.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that goes back to all the other conversations we've had. Like, don't think that you need to have a 10 email welcome sequence set up prior to launching your quiz. Like, don't even jump into that yet.
Yeah. This is reminding me of, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but I did a presentation with my daughter's first grade class earlier this year, and we were going over financial advice of like needs versus wants. And so this just brings me to that, because I look at a quizzes as a tool, right? And you just really sometimes have to sit back and say, is this a need or do I want it? Is this something that I need right now in my business that's going to be successful? Or do I just want it because it's like the hype that everybody's talking about? It's what like everybody's talking about in the coaching courses or whatever, wherever you're getting your advice from. And it's like very similar to like budgeting, you know, like you have to sit there and just think about, this is where I'm at. This is what I can do right now. And this is how then I'm going to get to where I need to get to, you know? And building a quiz it could be incredibly successful, but it's all about, you know, sometimes it's all about timing and being ready for it. And so you just have to, just like Josh was saying, have very realistic expectations of what you can handle, what you can do, what your business can do, what you're offering. You know, and sometimes people don't want the slow progress, but it's like, sometimes slow progress, it's the best progress, you know? So
like, at least there is some sort of growth or something happening rather than nothing happening.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Damaris?
I think if you're real quick on that point, if you're in that position where you're really not sure, that's where I think not just with Interact, but with a lot of tools, you can use the free subscription or the free trial to your advantage. So especially now with Interact, before you would sort of spend a lot of or most of or some of that free trial actually just building the quiz. But now you can get a full quiz made with Interact AI. So on the first day of your free trial, you have a quiz that you just need to integrate and then market. And within that free trial, within those 14 days, if you're following the right formulas, right, of getting your quiz out there, promoting it, sharing it, speaking to why and who would want to take it and what they're going to learn from it, then in those 14 days, you're going to see how your audience reacts, how many people sign up to your email list, what are they answering or what are they saying in your quiz questions, which results are they getting, even if it doesn't lead to, at the end of the day, new subscribers or new buyers. Yeah. It could tell you, the analytics could tell you a lot just in terms of what they're saying, so that maybe, oh, wow, I am not in the right place to offer what I thought I was going to be offering because everybody's saying this and I don't have an offer for that. So that's why I would say, if you're really not sure, use a free trial to your advantage. And it's not just with Interact. You can get a free trial with email marketing platforms to sync it up. You can absolutely use the CSV option when you're in the Interact 14-day free trial. But I think within that time period, if you're really promoting the quiz, you'll be able to tell what the ROI could look like or what it will look like.
Yeah, like as it starts to like pick up speed and
Totally.
Yeah.
I've looked. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna go off of Damaris's point, the needs versus want. That's the perfect analogy, because it made me think like the point at which you need a quiz, and a lot of our customers are coaches or course creators. So if, let's say you're like a nutrition coach, right? The point at which you need a quiz is when your schedule is literally full of onboarding consultation calls, and those consultation calls have a very similar shape to them. Like most of the questions you ask are the same every single time. So you're now at a point where you're doing like 10, 15-minute calls a day to potentially onboard people. Then you automate those questions you're asking and turn it into a quiz to help people find the right solution, because often those onboarding calls just look like, what is the right solution? Do you need this course? Do you need my coaching program? Do you need a group coaching program? Whatever it is. So from what we've seen, that's when you need a quiz. And if you're not at that point, then it might be more of a want. And that's where we tell people, like, just wait until you get to that point where, and I think this is like the same thing with building a sustainable business. That was another good point. You have to wait until it hurts. Like, you have to wait until it hurts to not have this solution, rather than like expecting to build it and they will come. Like that's a huge mantra in software, like build it and they will come, and it's 100% not true. And so you need the people to be coming, and then you build the solution to automate.
That's actually a great point, Josh, because I feel like we do that ourselves. I learned that from Annie pretty early on. Before, like, it would obviously be so much easier to buy every single tool out there for your business, but like us, we're a smaller startup, so we have to be really particular about, like, okay, what are we spending our money on, and is it going to actually help us? And maybe there are times where, okay, we could try this out for a couple months and then revisit. If it's actually doing something to benefit us or the business, then we can continue making room for it in our budget. But if not, then time to cut it from what we actually pay for. And I remember that when I first started going to Annie of like, oh, this would be cool to have, she'd be like, okay, well, come back to me with like exactly why you need it and what it's going to do and how it's going to actually impact the business positively. And once you kind of go through it, you're like, oh, maybe we don't need it right now. And she would always ask, like, are there other workarounds, even whether or not I say yes or no to this? Like, are there other workarounds that could, be cheaper or could be free? I guess you could say that might take a little bit more work, but not to the point where, like you said, like it hurts. And then if it hurts, it's like, okay, this is something that we need to invest in now.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And
feel like
like
we're doing that now. Like with Interact AI, I feel like we've tested it out for months and months now, and our customers are really, really liking the fact that we're building out the quizzes for you. And for all of you that don't know, we are actually the ones building those quizzes out for you guys at this moment for the same reason, to make sure that this is an investment worth building from. And so, so far, I think maybe Josh will speak better at this. So far, I think it is helping customers. So
Yeah, I mean, we see a very distinct inflection point when we started the AI to where we are now in terms of the business growth. And that's a super good point, because the funded option for building that AI would be, we're not going to release anything publicly. We're going to spend $300 to $100 million developing an AI quiz maker, and then we're going to launch it. And we've never had that option at Interact because we don't have outside funding. And I think that actually speaks to our listeners a lot more too, because like there's no funding in coaching. There's often not funding in e-commerce. Like this idea of like someone giving you money and you just play with it is very unique to software, but we don't play in that world. We play in the world where, yeah, you have to figure out like what is the very minimal way that we can offer the most value. And in order to understand that, you need to know like what is the value, like what is the thing that the customer needs, and what is the simplest way that I can offer that and the cheapest way I can offer that. And honestly, like it usually doesn't involve tooling for a while, because tooling expensive and takes a really long time. Like we are automating the AI now, but it's going to take like 3 to 6 months to automate what you all are doing manually. And I think that's the perfect analogy, because it's literally the same thing. Like it is exactly the same thing, because how are we automating it? We're automating it with a quiz that we are building in-house because it's more complicated. But like, you know, the tool set that we have works for our audience, like the coaching audience, because there's not as many variables as if you're doing software. So that's it. Like basically, and how we're trying to time that up is like, we don't want all of y'all to get overwhelmed building the AI quizzes. So we are planning to launch the automated version before you get overwhelmed, but not like ahead of time, like not before we have any interest. First, we got the interest, then we did it manually, you know, basically consultation calls all day long. And then once everybody's filled up on consultation calls, then we launch the quiz.
Something that I wanted to go back to was the concept of like making sure you're actually promoting your quiz in order to actually see results. Jackie, you were talking mostly this because you saw it a lot in coaching. Like you can't just create the quiz and leave it there. It has to be put out into the world. But okay, so let's say, right, like all of this sounds good. I'm in the place where I need a quiz. Where should I even be promoting it to actually get some of those results that we're talking about?
Yeah, I think like Josh said earlier, where are those inbound customers coming from? That's where you want to put your quiz, so that instead of booking up your calendar just to have onboarding calls, they're going through the quiz and getting the right recommended next steps. Then if it becomes a need for you to speak to this person because of XYZ reasons, right? They're willing to pay more for one-on-one services or whatever the case might be. That's when you give them the option to book onto your calendar, because you're ready for those appointments, right? Those are the types of calls that you're looking for.
Yeah,
Do
like
you
if you're
guys go ahead, and then I have a follow-up question.
I was just gonna say, like specifically, like if you're at the point where the number one option in your link in bio is to book a consultation, and you are just booked out weeks and weeks in advance, then that's the time to replace that with a quiz that automates some of the onboarding and then bump down your consultation, so it's just not the number one option. So like that's the very specific, I think, time. Same thing on your website. Like if the main call to action is book an appointment or book a consultation and you just don't have any more availability, that's the point where you'd want to swap that out with a quiz and then kind of hide the consultation so you can still offer it. Or you can put it in the quiz and offer it to some people if it's like your perfect client.
Do you think it's worth it to send your quiz out to your existing email list?
Depends on the type of quiz.
Yeah.
I feel like usually no, honestly. I feel like when people ask that question to me, I'm like, you're thinking about it incorrectly. Like the quiz is really great at onboarding people. For like ongoing engagement, it's not really built for that. At least our tool is not built for that. Like it's not really a survey tool. You can kind of jerry rig it to be a survey tool, but it's not gonna be perfect. And like I would just use a survey at that point.
In coaching this, I laughed because in coaching this came up quite a bit. And for those looking to use their quiz for lead generation, it is not a good idea to send your quiz to your email list because they're already on your email list. You're not getting new subscribers from that unless there was some type of call to action, like share this with 10 of your friends or post it on social or something like that, right? But I think that there were a handful of people who wanted to use a quiz to segment their existing list. And in that case, yeah, you should send the quiz to your existing list. Essentially, there were certain questions or specific results that they would want to know what people on their existing list would get. Maybe it's doing a little bit of market research. Maybe it's creating a pool of people that you can email and offer to, or something like that. So yeah, it goes back to the goal. What are you trying to do? But I just want to reiterate, because I was asked this a lot. If you're using it for lead generation, there's no need to send it to your existing list. They're already on your list, that you've generated the lead.
I watched this clip on TikTok yesterday where this woman had been talking about, oh my gosh, sorry, I'm going to butcher now that I'm trying to recall what she said. But she was pretty much saying, like, you really need to think about like where your audience already is. And that's where you want to promote things. I mean, this was more in the context of like, which social media platform should you be on? Should you be on all of them? Should you be on some of them? And like with, the rise of, tools where you could send out posts to every single platform, like, it kind of takes away the meaning of where your audience is. And basically her whole point was like, you should focus on where your audience already is and what you're already good at. So if that is LinkedIn, then that's where you should be. If that's, Instagram, that's where you should be. And I really resonated with that in terms of quizzes, because I think the question of like, where do I promote? The first thing that people always want to do is, one, send it to their existing list, and two, set up a Facebook ad. And you reminded me that, Josh, when you said that in the beginning that you had spoken to someone where like they got low quality leads, and it's like, you could do all the targeting in the world, but like if that's not where your audience already is, then that's probably why it's not doing as well.
Yeah. I just want to add to what you're saying, Jessmyn. Like, I think it's very, very important, especially like, even if you're starting up or you're in the middle or extensive, whatever level of business you're in. It's very, very important to listen to your audience and what they want, because word of mouth is incredibly powerful in businesses. And if you're not providing value and you're not giving the answers to your customers, you will not get referred. Like, it's just not going to happen. You have to have basic, good customer service, or be able to have the tools and resources to just answer the questions that your people are wanting you to answer. And sometimes I think that we get caught up in like the sales part of it, or like the coaching courses part of it. And sometimes, being pushy is not always the best strategy. Sometimes just providing some free advice or being there for your clients in the end is what will benefit you, because it'll come back to you. Right. And so just sometimes to keep that in mind in terms of promoting, just like do what's right for the customer, and the customer will come back. That was just
such a good point. Such a good point. And I'm not going to disclose any sort of names, but like I've been exposed in the business world to a lot of companies, and there's kind of two camps that people end up falling into. There's the camp that is really good at actually selling stuff through like Facebook ads to literally anybody. And the thing about those businesses is the churn is off the charts. Like, the churn meaning like how many people cancel. It's basically like a, one and done type of business. Like, people come in, they pay you once, and they're not happy. They're not going to refer people. They're not going to be promoters of your business. But you've gotten really, really good at, selling people on like an immediate basis. And we basically just aren't a good tool for that mindset. Like, it's one mindset, and like, without placing any sort of judgment on it one way or the other, like, that's just not an audience base that we work with. Our tool is not good for that. There are tools that are good for that, and you can use those tools. But the other camp is where you are thinking about what you said, Damaris, is like, who is the customer that like really appreciates what we have and needs what we have and is using what we have with a positive return on their investment, like generally, right? And who are those people and what else do they need from us? How can we offer better service to them? How can we make sure they have what they need? How can we build the right tooling for them, the right features, the right integrations for them, right? And that's what we focused on a lot with like our direct integrations with, email softwares that a lot of other softwares don't integrate with because our particular customer base uses them, like ConvertKit, right? It's like direct integration. You can segment everything. That's something that we know because it's like one particular subset. But we wouldn't do that if we were the first type of business. We would just sell people on the dream of a quiz. We would charge them a lot of money up front, and then we wouldn't care if they churned out because our ROI on our ads would be like, 50x. We'd spend $100 and people would pay us $1,000. And there's a bunch of quiz companies that have done this over the last 10 years, and none of them exists anymore. And so I think it's really about what type of business do you want to build? Like, do you want to build something where it's like get in, make some quick money, get out? Or do you want to build something that's like lasting and actually matters to you? And I think that's the other point you made is like, is this something that actually matters to me? Like, am I working on a business that matters to me? And if you're not, then you're probably more likely to just want to make quick money and get out. But if it's actually something that you care about, then it's more worthwhile from what I've seen to like build something sustainable.
I love that.
I think that's why the best quizzes are the ones that are so focused on your customer as well. Because if you're really invested in helping these people solve the problem that you help them solve, right, then you're going to want to create a product for them that actually solves the problem. And so that's why when you really understand what their problems are, what their needs are versus what their wants are, right, what they think that they want, when you put that into a quiz, that's why it can be so effective, because it's doing that, but like this quickly for them.
It reminds me of this thing that you always say, Josh, where you're like, if we have to convince people, then it's not worth it. You know, like if like that's what our content does, or like that's what like our marketing does, like if it's trying to convince people to use a quiz, then it's not worth it.
Yeah. And that goes back to, I mean, connecting the things that you both just said, like understanding your customer so that you can speak to the needs of that customer, and then just talking about that. And that's how we do marketing, right? Like you all are part of this, like you all make marketing material. It's like we're literally just talking about like, oh, our customer needs to integrate with Linktree or put their quiz into Linktree. Well, here's a really simple tutorial on how to do that. Oh, our customer needs to figure out how to, add their quiz as an Instagram post, or they want to make a personality quiz. Like, here's how to do that. And we just make that content. And then for your audience, like whatever it is that they're thinking about, what they're trying to do, you just make content about that. You talk about that, but you have to actually understand what they need. And I think the ad-based businesses are often addressing very like basic human desires of like, I want to get rich and I want to do whatever I want. Like it's very like primal in a way, versus like once you dive under the surface and it's like, well, what are you actually trying to do? And it's really obvious if you understand that or you don't, like, because you're going to be saying things that your audience will be like, oh, that is me, versus like, yes, everybody wants more money on some level, but like, it's like so obvious.
I see
Kind of
those
goes
on
back to
TikTok all the
goals.
time.
Yeah, but it goes back to your goals, right? Like, what are you spending all this money for, right? Like, do you really need that much? But no, everybody wants more money just because it'd be fun to have more money.
I love that.
True.
So
I was gonna
go
ask,
ahead.
I don't know if you guys have noticed, but sometimes when we build out AI quizzes, I go back and check to see like, okay, is it on their website yet? Is it on their socials yet? What have they done with it? And there was one lady that I built a quiz for. She got it on Thursday. I checked back in with her on Monday and she already had 37 leads. And in that time, she did two things. She posted on Instagram about it twice and made it like the main CTA in her link bio. And she made it a pop-up on our website because she would have had to like rearrange her homepage to embed it first and everything. But she did those two things. And I'm assuming she probably either did all this on Thursday right after she got it or on Friday. But by Monday, she already had 37 leads. And I was like, Okay, I'm impressed. Clearly,
Yeah.
like this is working. And I'm always so impressed that as soon as people get their quizzes, they do like these two things, make it a pop-up on your website at least, and add it to wherever you are on socials. I feel like if we go back to like the main question of this podcast, those are like two big takeaways to get results with your quiz.
Yeah. I love, yep, right there, formula. I love that. That was great. That was the whole podcast right there.
Don't listen to it. Just listen to that.
Something that came to mind though is just this idea of like when you're excited about it, your audience will be excited about it. And especially if your quiz is a topic that you're excited about, you know, like that will kind of show through and you will get those results faster. I think that was like such a good point of like so simple, just do two things and see where it goes. Let's say people are not getting the results that they wanted or that they were expecting, you know, within X amount of time. They said, okay, I'm going to run this for like a month, right? Or less, more, whatever that ends up being. What are some things that they can do in maybe whether it's like adjusting the quiz or finally calling it quits?
I always recommend looking at your quiz analytics first because I promise you all, I am not a numbers person and I can read the Interact quiz analytics so well because they're so simple. And basically it gives you a funnel, right? How many people viewed the quiz, how many people clicked to start it, how many people answered the questions, and how many people subscribed or got to a result page. And just from those 4 steps, you'll know if people aren't clicking in to take the quiz, then either they haven't found it or it's not of interest to them. So work on the title. If they're not getting through your quiz questions, then maybe you can change them up. Our growth plan offers very specific analytics on which questions are the bulk of your people falling off of. You can reorder them, you can change them, you can remove them. There's all sorts of things you can do with that. If they get to your result page, if they're subscribing to your email list, then it's sort of not the quiz. The quiz is working, it's getting them on their list, but what happens after they get onto your list? Are you communicating with them regularly? Are you sharing information that's specific to what they told you about? So I would say do not call it quits until you really look at what those analytics are telling you. And I would also recommend to play around with them. So if people aren't taking your quiz, try to change it either in where you're putting the quiz or the title of your quiz, maybe the cover image of your quiz, and see, does that just that one change get people to click in to start it? If so, great, let's move to the next step and make sure that they're answering the quiz questions. And then the next step of making sure that they get to your quiz results.
Yeah, I think the most common ones that I see is the title and the cover. And the problem with the titles is like people generally aren't making the quiz about the customer. They're making it about themselves. It's like, I want to recommend the right product to you. I want to sell you this. I want to sell you that. So you really have to flip that around of like, what is your customer thinking about? They're usually just thinking about like one of two things. Like, I either want something in my life or I don't want something in my life. And I'm trying to identify what that thing is. And so make that the title. Like, how do you get the thing or how do you remove the thing? And make it a really simple title. And then the cover, you know, image and, you know, putting like a compelling image on there, usually featuring yourself if you're a coach or like a client or whatever, if you have permission, and then just not having too much text on that cover, making it simple so that it addresses what your customer is thinking about. That usually is the thing that unlocks it.
And I think in so many cases, people try to do that in their quiz title. Like to them, the quiz is doing that. But this is why I love AI so much, because maybe you're using jargony terms or you're saying it in a way that only you really understand because you know your business so well. But AI can sort of flip the language for you so that it's written for your customer, so that it's something that's very easy and clear to understand as to why they would or wouldn't want to take the quiz, which is great because you don't want everybody to take your quiz. You only want your ideal customers to take your quiz.
And that's actually a very good point because I've noticed that in some of the requests that we get, people can get incredibly specific on what they want, you know, the funnel that they want, how they want it to go through the journey, what the next steps is. And I'll click on their website and I can just clearly can see what kind of quiz they need. Okay, you just really don't need all of that. You just need this one thing to get started and you can do the rest as time progresses, right? And so a lot of the times, as Jackie said, AI helps us help you by just simplifying the idea.
Mhm.
Just
Totally.
you get to the idea, you just need to take a step back and just, high level, this is what you need to get started, So
And
it's very
that's why
fascinating.
it's Interact AI. People ask us that sometimes. They're like, which models are you using? And like, how is this working? And it's like, we're using models like ChatGPT and stuff, but like, honestly, it's stuff like that, where it's like, that because you've built, I don't know, at this point, a couple 100 quizzes with the AI.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know that otherwise. And that's why, like, as we're, launching this Interact AI, it's like, it is our team making AI do something, not AI doing something.
Yeah. And just to add for those listeners, I totally get it, because when you're in your own business, you get so like into, what you want to offer, your jargon, you're very focused on the goal or whatever it is that, you're trying to accomplish in that moment. And sometimes you just need a second opinion, and you just need to step back and just get a different perspective. And build from that, just being open to feedback. Believe me, we definitely don't try to stray you in any bad way. If anything, we want to make sure that you're successful, and sometimes simplifying helps. So
I would say that's a mega differentiator between like our quiz templates and the AI quizzes that we're making right now, is that they're a very much more simplified version to get you started. Because the quiz, I mean, in all of our other episodes where we talk about what makes a good quiz and things like that, right? It's, you want the topic to be broad so that it fits a large pool of people, but it's also specific enough to speak to your ideal customer and what it is that they need.
yeah. And I just want to
actually
just one
go
last
ahead.
thing. I'm so sorry. I just thought of an example. Like I've had a couple of people that I've built their quizzes like back in April or late April, early May. They have not even started a trial. They're not even interested. And then are barely now reaching out to me like, hey, I'm ready. Like, can you transfer that quiz over? I'll start a trial. And they just weren't ready at the time, but that quiz sort of helped them simplify, or maybe take a step back and say, okay, maybe this could be something that I could work with to get me going. And it's just, it's a very interesting process to see on the back end of things. And it's very satisfying to see all of you be very happy with the results.
And that the point that you made, Jackie, really made me think about shifting our strategy to, like, if we're talking about habit formation, like you're trying to form a habit of building a quiz, basically, you need a very small step to get started. And I think a lot of our current templates are great, but they're really, really specific to types of businesses. And so it's almost like too much of a jump from the beginning. And so for us, thinking about our own strategy as a business, and this applies to anybody who's building a quiz, because the onboarding to initial template is going to be a quiz. So what do you do right after a quiz? You give somebody a very, very small step, which is like, here's a template that's just designed to get your mind going. And then we'll give you like, further suggestions or whatever we end up doing. That's such a good point to think about for us.
We need a formula quiz. What's your quiz formula?
What's your quiz formula?
Mm-hmm.
I just love that as we're doing these podcasts, Josh just gets these ideas. It's like a light bulb, like, oh, wait, this is what I like to do.
That's the secret point of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You can see like Josh thinking, and all of us are sitting on this call like, okay, as soon as we press stop recording, Josh is going to be like, so I have an idea.
Let's go build something. But that's
it is called
I mean,
grow. It is called grow. Okay.
Right. And that's kind of the inception of this podcast, right? It's like we are literally, now, like from my position, right? Like my audience, if I'm running a business, is all of you, because you are the ones actually using the AI tool that I am the product lead on. And so this is how I'm learning how to develop our product. I think this very much translates over to anybody who's listening, right? Like listening and asking questions and just like understanding what's happening. And like, the points that you all are bringing up about using the AI is making the product better so that as we launch it, right? And I think that's literally it. Like you just sit there and you listen, and then you get ideas.
Love it. Well, guys, thank you so much for trying out this new style with me. I actually thought it went really well. I really loved it. Hopefully the listeners do as well. As always, we will link Interact AI for you guys in the show notes. But I did want to see, Jackie, do we have any videos on how to read your analytics? I feel like we do.
Yeah, we do.
We'll link that as well, because I think that's super useful to really figuring out, like, you know, if you're actually getting the results that either you expected, or maybe it's about adjusting those expectations based off of where your quiz is at. And you can always reach out to Damaris in chat to see if, you know, help me figure this out. Like, what do these numbers mean? What am I looking at here? And yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.